Show, where freedom is cool and political correctness is for sissies.
And that's me, Valerie Emmons. Hey, everyone. Today on the Val Emmons Show, as usual, we have a lot to talk about. If you want to weigh in on any of today's topics, you can send me an email to valemmons@gmail.com, or you can post something on my Facebook page at www.facebook.com/ValEmmons. Or you can send me a tweet to @ValEmmons. All that technology. No wonder we don't get anything done. Okay, so let's start out. I want to talk about some news around town. Little Rock has now added a citywide surveillance system. And according to KAIT Channel 7 in Little Rock, all 53 police cameras throughout Little Rock record footage 24/7. So, if you're listening to the program and you're in Little Rock, just shoot me an email or, post something on my Facebook page and let me know how you feel about this. Do you feel it's an intrusion upon your privacy? Or do you feel like it might make you safer? I'm not quite sure how I feel about it at this point. There's 53 cameras across the city. Now I know there's a lot of areas in the city that they need to have surveillance on because they obviously can't get a hold of the crime problem. But that would the way I look at it is that if these cameras are sitting there, 53 different locations, all you do is look up, see if there's a camera around. If not, go somewhere else and commit the crime. It's a deterrent, yes, but it's going to drive crime elsewhere. I mean, if the criminals actually watch the news and know about this. Anyway, I'll be bringing more about that to you when we find more. But I was actually invited this coming week to view their rollout of these cameras. So we'll let you know how that goes. Other news, Warren Buffett buys Exxon Mobil yesterday. Actually, he bought stake worth $3.4 billion. Makes me not want to drive. Buffett has in the past supported President Obama, and I'm sure he is a big bundler for him. And it seems that this support extends to embattled U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius. Buffett says gives Sebelius some time to fix the Obamacare mess she has overseen. Back in October on Piers Morgan, he said this. And he also said, I'm a friend of Kathleen's, and I'm a friend of her when she's in trouble. I like Kathleen. I feel sorry for her in the position she's in. Obviously, it's a huge screw-up, but it will get worked out. That's what Mr. Buffett said about Kathleen Sebelius, or otherwise known by me, Corella DeVille. And I just want to say, well, Mr. Buffett, if you like her, you may be good at picking stocks and investing in companies, but not too intuitive when it comes to picking friends. I have met the wretched woman, and she is a hateful, mean lady. She has no problem telling everyone else how to be healthy while her own husband is obese. I actually got not the pleasure of meeting her once because I went to an event that they were putting on. Governor Beebe was courting her because he wanted to have OBB care here in the state, and he wanted to, have the private option. He wanted it to be the test ground. And I was appalled because I was excited to meet her. And here this woman, I asked her for a picture, and she was like, just like that, I guess. And then she goes, she was like she was running out of time and stuff after she was late. She helicoptered in late. All right. I get she's a busy woman, but the next thing really, really, really made me angry. She locked us all in that building. She had her security lock us all in that building while she stood out in the hallway and have a conversation with city officials, while we watched for like 15 minutes. Some of us had to go to the bathroom. They wouldn't even let us out to go to the bathroom. It was absolutely ridiculous. And so, she was like huffing at me because she didn't have time to take a picture with somebody who pays her salary. I mean, I'm a taxpayer. I pay her salary. But anyway, back to Warren Buffett. Maybe if we all stop driving, he won't make any profits. And he anyway, that's not going to happen. So, you've been waiting all week. I have the winner of the ignorant comment of the week. And if you have one for next week, go ahead and send it to me at my email address, valemmons@gmail.com, or post to my Facebook. And I'll give you a shout out if your moron is chosen as most ignorant for this week. This week's most ignorant comment of the week goes out to Oprah Winfrey. I picked this one because it's just insane. It's the problem that we have in this country right now. And I understand, don't get me wrong, I understand the sensitive nature of it, but it's time to move forward. While promoting The Butler in the UK, Oprah Winfrey said that critics of Barack Obama are motivated by racism and that ultimately demographic pruning would be needed to stamp out racism, the Huffington Post reported today. She went on to say that there are still generations of people, older people, who were born and bred and marinated in it, in the prejudice and racism, and they just have to die. That's what she told BBC's Will Gompertz. And earlier this year, Oprah falsely claimed that millions of blacks were lynched because of race. She says, "You cannot be my friend and use that word around me." I'm guessing she was talking about the N-word. "It shows my age, but I feel strongly about it. I always think of millions of people who heard that as their last words as they were hanging from a tree," she told Parade magazine back in July. So the interesting thing is that she was that statement of hers was not true, and the Tuskegee Institute put the number of lynchings between 1882 and 1968 at 4,743, far short of the millions she claimed, but also still horrific numbers. I just want to add that. And since Obama's 2008 election, liberals have reacted like Pavlov's dogs to any criticism of president with false accusations of racism. MSNBC, for example, claimed that saying Chicago or Gulf is racist, while others have gone off the deep end, suggesting that calling Juan Williams by his first name is racist. What are you supposed to call him? Well, I know what I would call Juan Williams, maybe jackass. Even worse, a Portland school claimed it could spot racism in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Is that like spotting Jesus in your toast? I mean, I'm just saying. While dry asparagus prompted accusations of racism against a Missouri grocery store. Really? A post at Weasel Zippers had a short message for Winfrey. Stuff a sock in it, Oprah. And, you know, I just want to point out what a lot of national news organizations that have become lapdogs for the left failed to mention ever. There are many African American candidates out there right now running on a conservative platform. You know, a few, for instance, are, Lisa Fritsch, who's running for governor of Texas, and she's a conservative. Larissa Jones, candidate for Florida, United States Senate 2016, who over the last few days I've had the pleasure of speaking with. She's also conservative. And these women are not only African American, they have very strong conservative values. So Oprah, please take note. We disagree with Obama because of his policies, not his skin color. And so now Oprah wants everyone to think that if you are a white, then you can only disagree with someone's policies if they're white. Nice. So the ignorant comment of the week goes out to Oprah. And, you know, I've been called racist a lot myself because of this very thing, because I disagree with Obama's policies. That is the only thing that the liberals had to say to me when I was right about everything that's going on right now. Everything. I was exactly right when not only me, but everyone else. And we were called racist because we knew that this Obamacare was not going to work. It had nothing to do with the color of his skin. It had to do everything with what was in the bill. That's why we didn't like Obama. That's why I still don't like Obama, because he still won't own this. Oh, I didn't say that, technically. Oh, anyway. So let's move on. So China, I'm going to talk about China because it's interesting today because the Daily Beast reports that after years of criticism from Western human rights groups, China's Communist Party announced Friday that it plans to relax the country's one-child policy, now allowing Chinese couples to have 2 children. Wow. Wow. The controversial law was instated in the 70s to control China's enormous population, but was sometimes brutally enforced and resulted in a wide gender gap in Chinese society. The party also said it would abolish its re-education through a labor program, where people can be sentenced without trial to years in labor camps, another institution hated by the Chinese people and criticized by human rights groups. The third plenum, a large meeting of the Communist Party, also made plans to reduce step by step the number of crimes subject to death penalty. And so I read somewhere today about this too. I'm not going to quote it word for word, but I also read that the Chinese are getting older now, and so their population's dying, and so they have to replenish the population. So this 40-year-old law, or almost 50, no, let's see, 40, it'd be 40. It was instated in the 70s, so we'll just say 40. 40 years. Do you know how many people they kept from being? And that's why a lot of people are here in the United States, is because I know some Chinese people that they're here, and they can own, like they own a business here. They have 3 children, but when they first came here, they wanted to have 2 children. And so they would send one of their kids back to live with their mother and then teach them Chinese ways, etc., etc. And then they would send them back, and then so they ended up having 3 children, and they did the same thing with every one of them. They sent them there for a couple of years to learn the Chinese culture and the customs and the language, etc. And then they brought them back over here to go to school and Americanize them. It is so. So I wonder if how that's going to affect the immigration from China, because if you can have, and another thing that has to be awesome for women's rights, because they kill their little girls. Some of them leave them by the dumpsters because you can only have one child. And if you don't have a male, then you have no successor. That's terrible. Just think of all the babies, the poor little babies that have died by the dumpster. Females. Because they weren't born a certain gender. And now that's going to hopefully change a lot. Speaking of China, very interesting article in the Wall Street Journal cites that big U.S. computer and software companies are reporting a sudden chill in sales to China. And some blame increased government hostility towards the U.S. Can you guess why? In the latest sign, computer networking gear maker Cisco Systems said Wednesday that orders from China in the latest quarter fell 18% from the same period of year earlier. Cisco further projected revenue worldwide would decline 8% to 10% in the current quarter, in part because of continued weakness in China. Earlier, International Business Machines Corp., which is IBM, Hewlett-Packard, and Microsoft all reported declining sales to China in their most recent fiscal quarters. Executives cite several reasons for the drops, including a slowing Chinese economy, a pause related to current Communist Central Committee meeting, and a strong push for Chinese companies to use homegrown products. But also, they're blaming the NSA. Let's pull this article up here from the Wall Street Journal. So basically, big U.S. computer and software companies are not wanting to do business because of this NSA thing that we're going through in this country. And that Edward Snowden obviously, said that we're doing all this spying, and a lot of it, some of it, on the Chinese. And so I'm sure we're going to face even more criticism from this, because it's absolutely absurd that we are spying on everyone. China's not going to be the only one. People are going to just start looking at our country like, wow, if I buy that iPhone, will it have this in it, and will it be tracking me? That's probably what that's probably what people are thinking. And the technology is so crazy that, just think, if you're an American and it come to be that the Chinese were spying on you through the toys that they make. I mean, I'm just I'm just putting that out there. I mean, would you stop buying toys from them? I think I would. I think I would be leery, even when they said, no, 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 we're not using that. We're just using it. It's just there. I just think that it can't go on much longer, and hopefully with these hearings that took place this week, we will find a solution and craft a new bill to stop the NSA from doing what they're doing, and also to protect our terrorist, protect our country from terrorists. Because I do understand that portion of it as well, but I think that it's going just a little bit too far. So other news from around the country, Albania on Friday rejected a request from the United States for a tiny, impoverished Balkan nation to host the destruction of Syria's chemical weapons stockpile. This is a major blow to international efforts to destroy the arsenal by mid-2014. Kron News reports that in a television address, Prime Minister Edi Rama said it was impossible for Albania to take part in this operation. The announcement was greeted by a loud cheer from some 2,000 protesters camped outside Rama's office who opposed the plan to dismantle the weapons in Albania. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons has been discussing a plan to destroy Syria's estimated 1,000 metric ton arsenal, which includes mustard gas and the deadly agent sarin, nerve agent sarin. Syria says it wants the weapons destroyed outside the country, and the OPCW has described that as the most viable option. A Friday morning meeting of the OPCW's Executive Council, The Hague, was adjourned to allow national delegations to work on the wording of the plan. Meanwhile, outside Rama's office, hundreds of youths camped overnight to protest the plan. So there's a lot of protests. I mean, I wouldn't want that stuff in my country either. Ooh, that's really scary. Look at all the damage it's done. I mean, look what it did in Syria, and look what it's done in Iraq. I mean, all those people died, and then you want to bring it, no, I don't think I would do that either. There has to be, I don't know where the best place, I really don't know where the best place, but that's frightening. It really is frightening. If any of that stuff leaked out into the atmosphere, I mean, those people, and you can't get that back and say, what, Obama's going to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Anyway. Interesting in the news today, here in the United States, an Alabama man's wife is exhumed from front yard grave. The Associated Press reports that the body of an Alabama woman who passed away in 2009, Patsy Davis, has been removed from a front yard grave after a lengthy court fight. One of Davis's daughter burst into tears as the vault containing her mother's body came out of the ground Friday morning. Husband James Davis said that before she died, he promised to bury his wife at their log cabin home in Stevenson in northeast Alabama. However, the city sued, and he eventually lost his legal battle to keep her remains there. A judge this week approved a plan to remove the body. James Davis says he now plans to cremate her remains and keep them in the house. What do you think about that? I think that it's your property. I mean, you should be able to do what you want with your property. There's houses that are built on graves. I mean, not knowing. I don't know if it's in a a container. I don't see the harm in it. Not like Alabama's going to be a flood grounds or anything. All right, anyway, so now this next story is very interesting. It is right here at home. And it's interesting in more ways than one because an inmate released and then he won't leave. So he was released in the Pulaski County Jail, that's here in Arkansas, Little Rock to be exact, around the Little Rock area. He was released and he wouldn't leave, so they arrested him again on criminal trespass charges. Basically, they gave him what he wanted. I mean, anyway. Maybe he should be in a state hospital instead or in police protective custody because he's either nuts or afraid to be out in public for some reason. So today's Arkansas Online reported that a 27-year-old inmate released from Pulaski County Jail was booked in again in a new charge Thursday after he refused to leave the property, authorities said. Willie Davis, he's 27 years old. Sorry, I lost my spot. I hate when that happens. He's been arrested 15 times since 2004, including 6 times this year, and 4 of those this week alone. Remained in the facility Friday morning on the charge of criminal trespass. Pulaski County Sheriff's Office spokesman Lieutenant Carl Menden said. Police say Harris had just been freed Thursday afternoon when he refused to leave the release area and started causing a disturbance, saying he had killed his son. Wow. Deputies responded, determined the claim about the son was false, and then escorted Harris off the property. I advised Harris to leave the jail property and not return, or else he would be arrested for criminal trespassing, Pulaski County Sheriff's Office Sergeant Martin Marler wrote in the report, noting he watched as Harris walked off the property, turned around, and headed back. Within a couple of moments, Harris was back on the jail property, walking up the same driveway that he was on. He said that he drove up to him and asked him where he was going, and Harris pointed towards the jail and said, "I'm going back up there." He was then arrested and booked in once again. Harris's time in jail this week started early Tuesday with an arrest on charges of public intox and violation of a protection order. He was released at 10:30 the next day, but booked in just 4 hours later on a criminal trespass charge from North Little Rock, Menden said. Harris was released at 9:40 p.m. that night, only to be arrested at 6:10 a.m. Thursday on charges of public intoxication and criminal trespass. He was released on those charges at 11:40 a.m. before the most recent arrest. Menden said it's not clear why Harris didn't want to leave. You know, I would think maybe he's scared for his life or something, or maybe he's mental. I mean, I think this is something that, if you don't want to leave jail, there's got to be some, it can't just be, I mean, I know people are saying 3 hots and a cot. I get that too. But I don't think that's the case, because I mean, well, it is kind of cold outside. So that could be the case too. Maybe he's homeless. I don't know. I've asked the Lieutenant Menden for more information on that. So as soon as I find out that information, if it's worthy, I will definitely give an update on it. Okay. Now on to the dreaded Obamacare. I know you've been waiting patiently for this update. The House passed today the Keep Your Health Plan Act, H.R. 3350, which, if passed by the Senate and White House, it will allow 2013 insurance policies to continue to be sold until next year. And so for the time being, you will be able to keep your plan. Now, with that being said, I'm curious, and I've asked Congressman Griffin this, but I haven't heard back yet. And when I do hear back, I will let you know. And you can find that information on my Facebook as well, because I'll put it there. Now, with that being said, will you be penalized for not having the 10 essential health benefits as well? I mean, because right now you can keep your insurance plan if you want, but you still get penalized. So will the insurance companies even make these plans available, or reinstate folks who have lost their coverage? Interesting that this only prolongs the inevitable long enough until after next year's midterm elections. The White House has threatened to veto the bill if it comes through the Senate, if it passes the Senate. Let's see, where... Jay Carney said today that whatever its intentions, the bill would allowing insurers to sell substandard policies. Whatever its intentions, the bill would allow insurers to sell substandard policies. I'm sorry, I lost my place again. To new customers. So, an unlimited number of new customers would undermine the central premise of the Affordable Care Act. That central premise is that there should be minimum health coverage standards for everyone. Basically, what he means is that if you're a man and you're going to get and you get knocked up, now you won't have coverage to deliver your baby. And I don't mean your wife, I mean you. What a goon. Jay Carney is just a goon. I think substandard coverage for everyone, really? That's not the case. People loved their insurance. This is not the case at all, and I hate that guy. He's still mad. He's just an angry little demon. Given it's not mandatory for insurance commissioners to drop the policy change or for insurance to go along with it, some Senate Democrats have suggested they may pursue more legislative options. A handful of Senate Democrats earlier in the week were backing a bill that would make it mandatory for insurers to extend policies for another year. How can you make it mandatory that a company offer a product? Well, I guess the same way you make it mandatory for someone to buy a product. I don't know how this thing's going to work. I really don't think insurance companies are going to do it. I don't think they're going to sell the old policies. And what good would it do them? In a year, you're going to have to do the same thing. They're just prolonging the inevitable. And I find it interesting that they're doing it, so that, again, you won't see the effects until after the elections again, after the midterm elections. In a statement on Arkansas Congressman Tim Griffin's Facebook page, Tim says, as President Clinton recently acknowledged, millions of families are losing their health insurance plans because of Obamacare. President Obama looked Americans in the eye and promised that wouldn't happen, but that's just not true. While our bill will allow folks to keep their plans for another year, it's clear that Obamacare is a broken law, and its broken website is only the beginning. Obamacare must be repealed so we can pass real patient-centered health reform. And that's Arkansas Congressman Tim Griffin, who I'm really sad because he's not running again. He has been very vocal on a lot of things I talk about, like the Obama phones. I wrote that article, and actually Fox News picked it up, and then Tim picked it up too, about the Obama phones and who the Carlos Slim is the richest man in the world, and he actually owns American Mobile, which actually owns TracFone, which actually runs the SafeLink program, and this actually makes the most money off of the Obama phone program. It's not even an Obama phone. I'll have to dig up that article and read it to you again, and along with my great health insurance swindle, because everything I said in that article is coming true. You can find that on my Facebook page too, in my notes section. I've put it there, I've republished it there. But anyway, Hulu made the most money off of the FCC free phone, because it was just a landline, back when it was started. It was just supposed to be for emergency landline phones. It wasn't supposed to be, you weren't supposed to get free text, free cell phone, so you could, have 20 phones. I just think it's out of control, and Tim has been a big supporter and a big mover and shaker to get these things no longer accessible to people who are abusing them. And I think it's great if you're not abusing them. But when someone comes up and they have a brand new car and an iPhone, and then they have their little flip phone too, because they could, I think it's absolutely out of control. It's like the food stamps. We need to step back and take a big look and stop using emotion for everything. You gotta take the emotion out of it, folks. Sometimes you don't see things because you're overwhelmed with the emotion. But if you take the emotion out of it and see it for what it really is, I think a lot of things in this country might change. And I'm not a cold-hearted bia, as my ex-father-in-law called it, a bia. I'm not a cold-hearted biatch. But I can have common sense and see when people are abusing a system that it was set up to help. And I can also see that folks that abuse it give those who need it and don't abuse it a bad rap. And I don't think that's fair. Programs that are set up by the government were set up to be temporary. And they weren't set up for you to live off of them. So I may do a show tomorrow, I may not. This is the great thing about having podcasts. Knowing me, I will do a show, because if I didn't, my head would probably explode when new news comes out. Anyway, contact me on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Val Emmons. You can check out my blog. I'll be adding more stuff to it as I get time. It's www.valemmons.com. Or you can send me an email, valemmons@gmail.com, or tweet me at @ValEmmons. Until my next podcast. And you know what? Have a great weekend, folks. Bye-bye.